wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out. It's a special day. It's
It's a really
publishing
special
day.
day.
Yes. So thank you for taking a minute out.
Thank you.
So before I get into my first question, I have to know, what do you do for publishing day? What kind of celebration? What kind of champagne is popped? What kind of confetti is flying? Balloons? What's going on?
Golly, it's been a build-up to publishing day, and I have several interviews, so I think
Okay.
I'm celebrating with you.
Okay, I love it. I absolutely love it. So let's hop in to before we get into the book and your world, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed all of our lives. How did you get through that pandemic of 2020, and how did it shape the way that you wrote this book, the way that you live life and do things today?
Well, actually, during the pandemic, I was writing another novel, and the novel was about the Broadway musical Camelot. It was called One More Seat at the Round Table. So, as I like to tell people, I was in a Camelot cocoon during the pandemic. Now, I'm ashamed to admit that I had a wonderful time and that I'm sorry that everybody was having a really rough time. But here I was back in 1960 with Richard Burton and Julie Andrews, and they were my characters, and I was having a great time. But no, there's another thing.
Yeah,
During the pandemic, of course, I'm not making light of it. It was a terrible time. It's just
yeah.
that my work life was going well, but um, a lot of people, of course, were working at home. It was easier to get people on the phone to tell you things at that time. So I wrote the book, I finished the book, and I published the book in 2023. And then I took a moment to look at The Voice I Just Heard, which came out in 2012. And I said, this is not right. I do not like this ending. It's terrible. I have to rewrite it. So, but as far as how it changed me, you know, I am sort of an indoor mom, as my daughter used to call me. I like to be indoors.
Yeah.
So it didn't bother me.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that from a lot of people that
You
like to
did.
be indoors. So the voice I just heard came out today on Atmosphere Press,
It did.
and you clearly re-released it. It's a revised edition because of the ending. So talk to me a little bit about kind of the story and why you felt after all these years you wanted to tweak it and re-release it.
Well, The Voice I Just Heard is a coming of age novel about a struggling soprano, and here I mean struggling with vocal stage fright. She meets an alluring baritone who knows a lot about singing in her summer job in 1970. She's working at a summer tent theater. The problem is, this is only 6 weeks after her brother dies in Vietnam, and her brother was her family cheerleader and her North Star, and she honestly wonders how she'll survive without him. And she wonders if the alluring baritone, Bart Wheeler, will break what's left of her heart.
So let me ask you this. If you were to get in front of a bunch of grade school kids right now, 12-year-olds at
Mhm.
career day, and one of the kids wanted to know what you did for a living, how would you explain what you do?
Well, I would say I write stories. Stories are in my head and I put them on paper. And it takes a lot of effort to write them out because they first live in your head. But that's what I do for several hours every day. I write stories. And I think that most grade school students would understand what that was.
So, what did you want to be at 12 years old? What was your dream?
I wanted to be a writer.
Okay. Always wanted to be a writer.
Always wanted to be a writer. And I have to tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
13, I grew up in Cohoes, New York, and Cohoes, New York is a major part of this novel. It is the setting of the novel. It's a historic mill town with a major waterfall, the second largest in New York State after the other waterfall, Niagara.
Yeah.
I lived in Cohoes and I went to St. Bernard's Grammar School and I had this great idea. Doesn't the local penny saver need a column for teenagers? Sure, it does. So I was with a friend and we went to the editor and we said, we want to write teen talk in the penny saver. And of course, he was shocked. Who are these little girls in their school uniforms? But he let us do it. So my first published work was in this penny saver in the Cohoes News Weekly. Now, this may sound like a silly thing, but it wasn't, because the very musical theater, the tent theater where I put the action of my book, used to bring in stars in the 60s, and we got to interview those stars for the column. And guess who one of those stars is? You'll never guess, so I'm going to just tell you. It was a very young Jeff Bridges.
Wow.
And he was touring with his dad, Lloyd Bridges. So Barbara and I, my friend Barbara, got to interview Jeff Bridges. I was 13, he was 13.
Wow.
But by the way, I still have the clipping, and I asked him some pretty silly questions.
That's cool. So you interviewed the dude. That's awesome.
I did.
That's very cool. One year on Twitter, when Twitter used to be fun, really fun, there was a contest, and you could, if you put your name in, he released an album in like 2012 or 13. You could win the album on vinyl and get the dude sweater from the Big Lebowski, and I won it. I never
You
got,
won it.
yeah, I never got the vinyl, but I got the dude sweater, which was awesome because
That
that's
is
my
awesome.
thing. Yeah. So
When I was writing for Huffington Post, and I really was doing whatever I wanted because in those days, it was a few years ago, when Ariana Huffington was in charge, and I really had a good run there. My work was often on the front page.
yeah,
So I have this whole nonfiction part of my life. But I thought I should contact Jeff Bridges. I should tell him he'll remember this interview because how many teenagers interviewed him?
yeah.
And maybe he'll let me interview him again. But I'm sorry to say I didn't follow up on it.
Well, you should. It would be great. I think and that kind of feeds into kind of the world of podcasting. One of my favorite shows, it's actually coming back, is called Heavyweight, and they kind of dig into stories that are have this long chronicle that's kind of unresolved. And what a great resolution to like reconvene and to see if he remembers parts of it because that has to be a big deal. I mean, it's not like a regular interview in the middle of his career.
No. Well,
It's
his dad, Lloyd Bridges of, I can't remember the show anymore. Was it SeaWorld? I think it was.
yeah,
Anyway, he was on tour in this play and he had a really good part in the play. He played the son of Lloyd Bridges in the play.
yeah,
And I will say one thing about Jeff Bridges, he was so admiring of his father. He
yeah,
was so reverent about his dad. And so that was lovely. And
yeah.
that did not escape my notice as a young person. Whereas in my novel, the parents of the young girl, Nora Costello, do not want her to sing, do not want her to go on the stage. And that was where her brother was a good balance to them. And I think it's very common for people who go into show business to perhaps not have parental approval.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So what was one of your favorite books growing up or even right now? What was one of the seminal reads for you?
Well, I'll be honest, I think Little Women was a seminal read
Yeah.
when I was young. To Kill a Mockingbird. I loved To Kill a Mockingbird so much. I paid tribute to it in this novel, and it became very important in this novel because the brother and sister read it together. And it became important because there are some phenomenal moments in To Kill a Mockingbird requiring courage. And they discuss the courage of his going to Vietnam and her courage to, basically go against the parents. So To Kill a Mockingbird for sure.
So do you remember the first thing that you wrote where you got a visceral reaction from somebody and it validated this pursuit that you had to move people with your writing?
The first time, it might have been the Cohoes News Weekly because I was interviewing some big name people and the editor was very pleased.
Yeah.
But also, I think my teachers, when I was growing up, I was always the one who was the writer in class, and some of them were incredibly positive. And also, I had a wonderful professor in college, Arthur Athanason at Michigan State. And I think Arthur was the first person that made me feel validated that I might not be a pretender, that it might happen. I was
So
writing plays at that time.
yeah, for sure. So who has been kind of your muse, your inspiration, a hero for you?
My husband,
Yeah.
I married my husband many years ago, and my husband believed in my writing from day one. When basically I wasn't showing it to anybody, he still believes in my writing. We're together many, many years. He is my muse, my best friend, my true love. He's everything to me. And I would not be writing without Barry Eisenberg. So there are other Susan Eisenbergs, and that's why I had to put the Dormandy in the middle. And that's a big mouthful, Susan Dormandy Eisenberg. But I said to him, I refuse not to be Susan Eisenberg because you're the reason I'm writing.
Wonderful. So the one thing about writing is it's one of those art forms where usually you don't have like a camera on them and you don't see behind the scenes. They're writing. It's not action packed. But if you
No.
could linger on the wall and watch a writer create their works and just see how they did it, see what their creative process and flow was, who would that be?
Oh, who would I like to watch? Um, I had a writer that I adored, and she's alive. She's in her 80s, Gail Godwin, and
Yeah,
she formed an early model for me. And I would like to see Gail Godwin writing because I have such respect for her.
yeah,
Of contemporary authors, I'd like to see maybe what Percival Everett does because he produced that major work, James, and which I thought was so outstanding. I think it won the Pulitzer.
yeah,
And I'd like to see him write too because he also has a very comic side to him.
yeah. So I'd like to just see one of Hemingway's cats just walking
Oh, the
around.
cats.
Yeah, just the cats, how they interacted whenever he was in his zone. If they were all like zonked out, or if their
Uh-huh.
tails were like antennae that were trying to bring transmissions from outer space, it would be
But
interesting to
let me
see.
ask you this. Did he let them in the room?
That's the other thing. Hemingway's a slippery slope. I mean, that's like we have this romanticized version, I think, of like people like him and Steinbeck, but who knows? Who knows what was really going on?
I just would like to say that Hemingway is one of my idols.
Yeah,
And I think that one of the books that I've enjoyed most by Hemingway is the nonfiction book that he wrote about Paris. Um, okay, it's escaped my it's escaped my memory. That's terrible. Um, but he has all these. He tells you about his writing process.
yeah.
Um, this is going to drive me crazy. What's the Hemingway book about Paris?
Okay,
Um,
I'm gonna Google it.
we're going to have to find out.
Yeah,
Anyway, he has the most scathing portrait of F. Scott Fitzgerald in that book.
yeah.
And then he also talks about how he wrote.
A movable
A
feast.
movable feast, of course.
So
Now,
I'm
see,
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I am always astonished, and you probably meet a lot of authors who tell you they do this, maybe. Hemingway was one. I'm astonished that someone could be so disciplined that they can go and write fiction in a cafe
Yeah,
with
right.
the noise, the
It,
chatter of the people,
yeah,
the sound of the espresso machine. Just think about it. I need silence to write.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm reading a book by Bill Bryson called Neither Here Nor There,
Oh, I
and
bet
it's
it's great.
yeah, it's about his European travels and he did it around the same time that well, his first trip was in 72, which is the year I was born, but then he went back years later, but he's going through Italy and all these places, and I did that in my 20s. So I'm like reliving his like splendor and recollections of Florence and Rome and all these places and Milan. So it's pretty cool. It's fun. He can write really well.
Congratulations. I mean, I think that anybody that can make you relive your own experience is a valuable writer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Weaving that imagination together. So, what is it for you that gets you up every day to create these worlds, to write these stories, to take care of your soul, and to do it all at a high level?
It took a long time
Yeah.
because for many years I really could not do it. I did not believe in myself enough. So it took several years, I'd say 10 years as an adult. And I'm not talking about after college, I mean between 30 and 40, to really say, I'm going to do this and to prepare. What really gets me up and ready to do it, it isn't going to sound remotely glamorous, is habit.
Yeah.
I go to it like a homing pigeon at this point,
Well, any good writer tells you that. Any good writer says you have to do it every day for a
every
set
day.
amount of time. It's the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing almost. It just becomes a part of your DNA.
I think also my life is not centered if I can't write.
Sure.
I don't have to write for publication. I've worked on several things. I wrote a new book, brand new book. I enjoyed that tremendously. I don't know if anything will come of it, but I loved doing it. It gives me endorphins. I'm happier when I'm writing.
Yeah,
I'm more relaxed when I'm writing. I don't
absolutely.
find writing stressful at all.
I find either listening to or reading books just keeps my cognitive flow at a level that makes me satisfied as a human being. Because I think sometimes I think, man, I wish I could read that, or what were these ideas, or what's this? And when you're swimming through those worlds of words, I think it always just makes me feel like I'm indelibly human by doing it.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned Hemingway's cats. Have you gone to Key West to see the descendants of the cats?
No, but see, I'm a cat person. I would love to. It would totally get my fancy. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I
How was
loved
it?
it.
Yeah.
There are so many cats. I mean, they're everywhere.
I would
It might
love,
be Istanbul for all we know, but Istanbul is the city of cats,
yeah.
thousands of cats. But
I didn't know that.
Hemingway's,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, yes. Like hundreds of thousands of cats.
I would just absolutely love that. They have cafes here in Kansas City where you can go and
That's
have a coffee.
wonderful.
Yeah, and I love it. Just when I see cats, it's like there has to be some lineage in my lifeline that went back to some cat thing because we
Me
just
too.
yeah, it
You
just
have a cat, of course.
yeah, I have a couple. I have two cats. Um
That's another thing I can't live without as a writer, a cat.
yeah, I love them. I love them. And the funny thing is that in a lot of podcasts, I see tails and bodies of cats swishing around all the
She was
time.
just in here.
Oh, good. I love it.
I
Absolutely love it.
have a cat named after Scout in To Kill a
Oh,
Mockingbird.
that's cool.
Her name
That's
is
very
Scout.
cool.
Actually, I wish it was original, but her original name at the Humane Society was Scoot. And I hated that. I
Yeah,
said, what's close to Scoot? Ah, Scout.
that's it. That's awesome. So, if you could go back in a time machine to 18 years old and give yourself a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained, the choices you made, what advice would you impart?
I would say don't be so hung up on being perfect because your work never will be perfect. Look at me. I'm reissuing a book.
Yeah,
Just do the work.
yeah,
And in the work, you'll find every answer you need. Number one. Number two, it isn't about what others think of your work. It's about what you think of it and what you get from it. It's nourishing to do it. I think that as when we're young, we have idols and we might like to be that person when we
yeah,
grow up. But it isn't about that. It's about finding your own voice, for want of a better word. And
yeah.
it takes a long time.
It certainly does. So, of everything that you've done, accomplished, and more importantly, evolved to at this point, what are you the proudest of?
The voice I just heard,
Yeah,
revised edition.
yeah. So, everyone has a perception of you out there, family, friends, readers, everyone that you work with in a business sense, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm a humble craftsperson just sitting in my room writing. It is only as good as it is that day that you're doing it. I'm not seeking fame and fortune. I just am a journeyman writer.
What do you love the best about living in Baltimore, and what do you miss about Silver Springs?
Well, what I miss about Silver Spring is being close to all the friends I had there.
Yeah,
I lived there for 30 years and it's a charming place. I also missed accessibility to the District of Columbia.
yeah,
I loved the cultural life. I went to the Kennedy Center. I went to the Folger. I went to Ford's Theater, everything. So I miss that. What I love about Baltimore is it's just its own city. As you said, Edgar Allan Poe. The
yeah.
first thing I did was visit his house when I moved here, and I'm not kidding.
That's cool.
And his tomb.
Yeah,
There's a lot of Poe stuff, and of course we have the Ravens
yeah,
named for the Raven.
yeah,
But I like the fact that it's okay, this is going to sound funny, 3 hours to New York
yeah. Right.
because I go to New York all the time.
Yeah,
But I like the downtown feeling of New York, of Baltimore. It's not the wire. People think, oh my gosh, Baltimore, the wire.
yeah,
No, 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 no. That's
yeah,
not the
yeah.
tone in Baltimore. I like Little Italy. I love the food. Baltimore is a foodie town. I
Okay.
don't know if everybody knows that.
I didn't know that. I mean, I think about seafood and being right there and having the access to that, but
And Fells Point,
yeah,
which is a very historic place with cobblestones. It rather reminds me of Georgetown. I
yeah,
love going there. They have the oldest established tavern in America. It's called The Horse You Came In On. It
yeah,
really is very old fashioned and it's wooden, a wooden bar. Of course, many bars are wooden, but woods all around. They say Edgar Allan Poe took his last drink there.
wow. That's cool. So, as an adventurous spirit, if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event with your own eyes, wouldn't create a tear in time, you could just witness it happen. What would
I
you,
know what it would be.
what's that?
I would go back to 1887, London, and I would see Annie Oakley and Buffalo Bill shoot in the London Ring during their time in London in 1887.
That's
It
cool.
was the Victoria's Jubilee. They were invited to perform. I'm working on a book about Annie Oakley. What I most wish I could do is meet Annie Oakley and Buffalo Bill, Bill Cody.
That's wonderful. So, the voice I just heard, the revised edition, comes out today.
It
This is
does.
publishing day.
It
So,
does.
where's the best place for them to get that? Any of your previous work, anything in your world, where do they go?
Anything they want to buy of mine, the voice I just heard would be Amazon.com or
Okay.
BN.com, which is Barnes and Noble. You can get more information about me at my website, SusanDEisenberg.com.
Okay, excellent. Susan, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
No,
And
thank you. This
have a
has been
great,
a blast.
yeah, absolutely it has.
Thanks.
Thank you.